In the vast expanse of space, being underestimated was exactly what humanity needed. As our lone exploration vessel emerged from the swirling clouds of the Orion Nebula, we had no idea we'd stumbled into the middle of an interstellar standoff between two of the galaxy's most formidable species, the crystalline Zenith Empire and the biomechanical Swarm Collective. I still remember that day clearly, sitting at my navigation console aboard the ESS Pioneer, when First Officer Chen's voice crackled through the ship's comms. "Captain, we're picking up some unusual energy signatures. Multiple vessels ahead." Her normally steady voice carried an edge of concern that made my hands freeze over the controls. Our small fleet of just 5 ships must have looked laughable to them. The Zenith Empire alone had brought 30 massive crystalline dreadnoughts to this sector dispute, each one nearly the size of Manhattan. The swarm's bioships pulsed and writhed in equally impressive numbers, their organic hulls shifting like living tissue in the starlight. Receiving transmission from both fleets, Captain, our communications officer reported, his fingers dancing across the holographic interface. They're laughing at us. The Zenith commander is asking if we brought our toy boats to watch the adults fight. Looking back, I suppose we did look rather unimpressive. Our ships were sleek and practical, designed for deep space exploration rather than combat. But what these ancient species didn't understand was that humanity had learned different lessons during our climb to the stars. While they evolved in systems rich with resources, we had to become masters of efficiency and innovation just to survive on our crowded Earth. All ships, battle stations, Captain Sarah Rodriguez's calm voice filled every corner of our vessel. "But hold your fire. Let's show them what this tiny fleet can do." There was something in her tone, not arrogance, but quiet confidence, that made me sit up straighter in my chair. As the tension mounted between the two alien armadas, we positioned ourselves carefully. The Zenith and Swarm were so focused on their ancient rivalry that they barely paid attention to our movements. Their massive ships, while impressive, were about as maneuverable as ocean liners compared to our agile vessels. What happened next would change galactic history forever. Just as the first energy weapons began to charge on both sides, our sensors picked up something that made my blood run cold. The local star was showing signs of imminent instability, the kind that could wipe out everything in the system within hours. Neither the Zenith nor the Swarm had noticed. Their ancient sensors focused only on each other. Their mighty fleets were about to be caught in a disaster they couldn't even see coming. We had minutes, maybe less, to prevent a catastrophe that would claim millions of lives. Captain Rodriguez's next words would echo through the halls of history. "All ships, prepare for emergency maneuver pattern Delta. Let's show these adults what humanity's tiny fleet can really do." She paused, and I could hear the slight smile in her voice as she added, "Time to earn our place at the grown-ups' table." As our small fleet sprang into action, I couldn't help but think about how often humanity had been underestimated throughout history. The mighty alien empires were about to learn what we'd known all along, that true strength isn't always about size or numbers. Sometimes it's about being clever enough to see what others miss, and brave enough to act when it matters most. But as we engaged our engines and prepared to execute the captain's orders, none of us could have predicted just how this day would end. The first warning signs came as brilliant flares of plasma erupting from the star's corona. Through our advanced sensors, we could see the stellar instability growing at an alarming rate. Our science officer's voice was tight with urgency as she reported the readings, each number more concerning than the last. "Both fleets are directly in the path of the coming stellar ejection," she announced, her fingers flying across the holographic displays. "Their ship's shields won't withstand that kind of radiation burst. They'll be cooked alive in their own vessels." The Zenith and Swarm fleets continued their standoff, completely oblivious to the imminent danger. Their massive ships, while incredibly powerful, were relics of ancient engineering, impressive but inflexible, like dinosaurs facing an extinction event they couldn't comprehend. "Execute pattern Delta," Captain Rodriguez commanded. Our 5 ships moved in perfect synchronization, the result of countless hours of drills and exercises. We never attempted this maneuver outside of simulations, but there was a first time for everything. And today, failure wasn't an option. The ESS Pioneer led the formation with our sister ships, Challenger, Aurora, Horizon, and Voyager, falling into position behind us. Each vessel was equipped with experimental graviton deflectors, technology we developed for deep space exploration. They weren't meant for this kind of application, but desperate times called for desperate measures. As we maneuvered between the two alien fleets, their commanders finally seemed to notice us. The Zenith Empire's crystalline ships turned their weapon arrays in our direction, while the swarm's bioships pulsed with aggressive patterns of bioluminescence. "We're receiving threats from both fleets," our communications officer reported. "They're ordering us to withdraw immediately or face destruction." He paused, listening to his earpiece. The Zenith commander is particularly colorful in his choice of words about our species. Captain Rodriguez's response was classic humanity. "Send them both the stellar analysis data, and while you're at it, tell them we'll gladly accept their apologies after we save their lives." Despite the gravity of the situation, I caught several crew members trying to hide their grins. Our ships moved into the final formation, spreading out to create a wide defensive grid. The graviton deflectors would need to work in perfect harmony to have any chance of success. One miscalculation, one misaligned field, and we'd all be vaporized by the coming solar storm. The star's surface churned with increasing violence, magnetic field lines twisting and snapping like cosmic rubber bands. We had maybe 2 minutes before the main ejection. I could feel sweat beading on my forehead as I maintained our precise position, knowing that even a slight drift could doom us all. Through the ship's external cameras, I watched as the alien vessels finally began to react to our warning data. Their massive ships started to turn, but they were too slow, too unwieldy to escape in time. The realization that they were trapped seemed to hit both fleets simultaneously, their earlier hostility forgotten in the face of impending destruction. "Graviton deflectors at maximum power," engineering reported. "Field stability at 97% and holding." The ship hummed around us as we pushed our systems to their absolute limits. Captain Rodriguez stood from her chair, her eyes fixed on the main view screen as the star's surface began to rupture. "Now we find out if humanity's tiny fleet is worthy of the galaxy's respect," she said quietly. "All ships, brace for impact." The star exploded into brilliance, a wall of plasma and radiation rushing toward us at millions of kilometers per hour. As the deadly wave approached our desperate defense line, I couldn't help but think that no matter what happened next, this would be a moment the galaxy would never forget. The wave of stellar plasma hit our graviton deflector grid like a cosmic tsunami. The entire ship shuddered, and warning alarms blared across every deck. Through the view screen, I watched in awe as the deadly energy split around our defensive formation, creating a protective umbrella behind which the massive alien fleets huddled like children seeking shelter from a storm. "Deflector stability at 80% and dropping," engineering reported, their voice straining to remain professional. "Hull temperature rising. We're bleeding heat into space as fast as we can, but it's not enough. The deck plates beneath our feet were growing noticeably warm." Our small fleet's formation held steady, each ship precisely positioned to maintain the protective field. The Challenger's captain reported their engines were running hot, while the Aurora's crew was diverting power from life support to maintain their deflectors. We were 5 small ships holding back the fury of a star, and every system was being pushed well beyond its design limits. "Incoming transmission from the Zenith flagship," communications announced, surprise evident in his voice. They're offering to link their shields with our deflector grid. The swarm is proposing the same with their biofield technology. Captain Rodriguez didn't hesitate. "Accept both offers. Tell them we'll need perfect synchronization. One mistake and we all die together." Her steady voice helped calm my nerves as I made minor course corrections, fighting to keep the Pioneer stable against the solar onslaught. What happened next was unprecedented in galactic history. The crystalline matrices of the Zenith ships began to glow with intense energy, their advanced shields extending to merge with our graviton fields. Simultaneously, the swarm vessels pulsed with strange bioluminescence, organic energy patterns weaving into the growing network of protective forces. Field strength increasing. Science reported excitedly. The alien technologies are amplifying our deflectors. But they paused, and I could hear the concern in their voice. The power readings are becoming unstable. The different systems were never meant to work together like this. Through the chaos, I noticed something strange on my navigation displays. The combined energy field wasn't just deflecting the solar plasma. It was beginning to affect local spacetime itself. The readings made no sense, showing patterns I'd never seen before in my years of deep space exploration. "Captain," I called out, my voice tight with urgency. "Something's happening to the space around us. The merged fields are creating some kind of resonance effect." The sensors were going crazy, showing impossible numbers that seemed to defy the laws of physics themselves. The ship's AI projected a holographic model of the phenomenon in the center of the bridge. We watched in amazement as the combined human and alien technologies created something entirely new, a cascade effect that was rapidly growing beyond anyone's control or understanding. "We've got energy feedback building in the deflector grid," engineering shouted over the growing rumble that permeated the ship. "If we don't do something soon, the whole system will collapse." The deck was vibrating beneath us now, and I could hear the hull creaking under the immense stresses. Captain Rodriguez studied the holographic display intently, her eyes narrowing as she analyzed the cascade pattern. I recognized that look. She'd seen something that might save us all. But whatever she was planning, we'd have to act fast. "All ships, prepare for emergency maneuver on my mark," she announced, her voice cutting through the chaos on the bridge. "What we're about to try has never been done before. It probably won't ever be done again." She paused, allowing herself a small smile. "Let's show the galaxy what happens when humanity's innovation meets alien technology." As the energy cascade approached critical levels and the combined fleet hung on the edge of destruction, we prepared ourselves for whatever the captain had planned. Looking at the faces of my crewmates, I saw not fear, but determination. We were about to attempt something that would either save everyone or end in spectacular failure. And somehow, that felt perfectly appropriate for humanity's first major act on the galactic stage. Just as Captain Rodriguez opened her mouth to give the order, our science officer's voice cut through the chaos with an alarming discovery. "Captain, the resonance effect. It's not just affecting our ships. It's creating some kind of temporal distortion. The space around us is folding." The holographic display showed reality itself beginning to warp and bend around our combined fleet. The merging of human graviton technology with alien defense systems had created something unprecedented, a phenomenon that was literally bending the fabric of space-time. Multiple new contacts appearing. Our sensor operator shouted. Through the shimmering curtain of stellar plasma, we watched in disbelief as ships began emerging from what looked like tiers in space. But these weren't just any ships. They were human vessels, dozens of them, bearing markings we'd never seen before. "Captain," communications said, his voice filled with confusion, "we're receiving transmissions from the new arrivals. They're claiming to be us, from different timelines." The bridge fell silent for a moment as the implications sank in. The temporal distortion wasn't just bending space. It was pulling in versions of our fleet from parallel universes. The new arrivals quickly fell into formation around us, their own graviton deflectors adding to our defensive grid. Each ship was a different variation of our own, some more advanced, others clearly having taken different technological paths. One particularly striking vessel seemed to be a hybrid of human and Zenith technology. "The cascade effect is stabilizing," engineering reported, sounding both relieved and bewildered. "Something about the presence of our alternate selves is actually helping to balance the energy feedback." The ship's vibrations began to subside, but we weren't out of danger yet. The Zenith and Swarm commanders were demanding explanations, their transmissions a mixture of awe and accusation. To them, it must have looked like we planned this all along, as if humanity's tiny fleet had somehow orchestrated this impossible scenario. "All ships, all timelines," Captain Rodriguez's voice rang out with authority, addressing not just our original 5 vessels, but now our multidimensional reinforcements. "We have an opportunity here that goes beyond saving these fleets. we could reshape the future of galactic civilization itself. Through our newly stabilized sensor readings, we could see that the temporal distortion was creating a unique phenomenon. The various timelines weren't just crossing, they were beginning to merge. Every decision, every technological path not taken, every alternate history was converging into a single point in space and time, and we were at the center of it all. New problem, science announced, their hands flying over their console. The temporal convergence is accelerating. If we don't act soon, these timelines won't just merge, they'll collapse, and they'll take half the galaxy with them. The holographic display showed a rapidly expanding web of causality, with our position at the nexus of what could become the biggest disaster in human history, across all possible histories. The Zenith ship's crystalline surfaces were vibrating in patterns we'd never seen before, while the swarm vessels were emitting strange energy signatures that our sensors couldn't even classify. Whatever was happening, it was affecting them just as much as us. Captain Rodriguez stood from her chair, her eyes reflecting the swirling chaos visible through the view screen. "We didn't just stumble into this conflict," she said quietly, almost to herself. "We're not here by chance. Every version of humanity, across every timeline, was drawn to this moment for a reason." As the temporal storm raged around us and the combined fleet hung suspended between realities, I realized we were no longer just trying to save two alien armadas from a solar flare. We were facing a decision point that would echo across dimensions, and the next few moments would determine not just our future, but every possible future. Captain Rodriguez's plan came together with lightning speed. "All ships, reconfigure your graviton deflectors to match the temporal frequency of the convergence point," she ordered, her voice carrying across dimensions. "We're not going to fight this, we're going to ride it." Through the chaotic swirl of energies, our fleet, both original and multidimensional, began to move in perfect synchronization. The Zenith and Swarm vessels followed our lead, their ancient technologies adapting to work in harmony with our innovative approach. Every timeline, every alternative path of human advancement, contributed its unique solution to the impossible problem. Energy convergence reaching critical levels, science reported, but there was excitement rather than fear in their voice. The temporal frequencies they're harmonizing. The view screen showed something extraordinary. The swirling maelstrom of timeline energies was beginning to pulse in rhythm with our combined defensive grid. That's when we saw it. In the heart of the convergence, a pattern emerged, a blueprint of sorts, written in the language of reality itself. Each version of humanity had developed different pieces of the same puzzle, and only by coming together could we see the complete picture. "It's a bridge," our science officer breathed in wonder, "not just between space, but between possibilities. The solar flare, the alien standoff, even our presence here, it was all necessary to create this moment." The holographic display showed how the temporal energies were weaving together, forming stable connections between what were once separate timelines. Captain Rodriguez didn't hesitate. "All ships, channel your deflector energy into the convergence point. We're going to stabilize these connections permanently." As our vessels complied, something remarkable happened. Instead of collapsing, the timelines began to merge smoothly, sharing knowledge and technology across dimensional barriers. The Zenith and Swarm watched in stunned silence as humanity's tiny fleet orchestrated what should have been impossible. Their mighty armadas bore witness as we rewrote the laws of physics itself, turning a potential catastrophe into a moment of transformation. But just as victory seemed certain, reality threw us one final curveball. The temporal bridge we created began to resonate with something else, something vast and ancient that had been waiting for this exact moment. Through the stabilized connections between timelines, we detected a signal that made every sensor on every ship light up with activity. "Captain, communications called out." Their voice filled with disbelief. "We're receiving a transmission. It's from humanity's future. Not just one future, all of them." The message that came through was simple but profound. This wasn't just about saving ships or bridging timelines. We had unknowingly completed a loop that our future selves had set in motion eons ago. The tiny fleet that had been mocked by ancient alien empires had achieved something unprecedented. we hadn't just prevented a disaster. We created a permanent connection between all possible human futures, ensuring that no knowledge, no discovery, no path of advancement would ever be lost again. As the temporal storm subsided and the new reality stabilized, the Zenith commander's transmission carried a tone we'd never heard from them before: respect. Perhaps, they admitted, we were wrong about the size of your fleet, for we now see that humanity's true fleet includes every ship that ever was, or could be. The swarm added their own acknowledgement, their bioships pulsing in patterns that their historians would later describe as profound admiration. In a single afternoon, humanity had transformed from a curiosity into a force that would forever change the course of galactic civilization. Captain Rodriguez smiled as she looked out at the now stable bridge between possibilities, knowing that we'd not only survived, we'd evolved. Send word to Earth, she ordered. Tell them that humanity's real journey is just beginning. And as our now expanded fleet prepared to navigate this new reality we created, we all knew one thing for certain: never again would anyone underestimate the power of a tiny fleet that dared to dream big. The weeks following our encounter became known as the Great Integration across all timelines. Ships from various realities worked together, sharing technologies and knowledge that had previously been confined to their separate paths. The Zenith Empire and Swarm Collective, once bitter enemies, found themselves working alongside humanity to understand and stabilize the temporal bridges we'd created. Back on Earth, the news of our achievement sparked a renaissance of scientific and cultural exchange. Theoretical physicists worked overtime trying to explain how a tiny fleet had managed to bridge the barriers between realities. The simple truth was that humanity's greatest strength had always been our ability to adapt and innovate when faced with impossible odds. Captain Rodriguez was called to address the United Earth Council, where she explained how our different timeline versions had unknowingly been preparing for this moment all along. Each path humanity took taught us something vital, she told them. Some focused on graviton technology, others on temporal mechanics, and still others on innovations we'd never even imagined. But it was only by bringing these pieces together that we could see the whole picture. The Zenith Empire, showing unprecedented humility, requested a permanent human diplomatic presence in their systems. Their crystalline archives now contained detailed records of how 5 small ships had changed their understanding of what was possible. The Swarm, too, began incorporating human adaptability into their collective consciousness, leading to remarkable developments in biotechnology. But perhaps the most profound change was in how we saw ourselves. The temporal bridges didn't just connect different timelines. They connected different versions of humanity, each with their own stories of triumph and failure, innovation and perseverance. We learned from every path not taken, every choice that led to both success and setback. During one quiet evening shift aboard the Pioneer, as we prepared to return to our regular exploration duties, I found Captain Rodriguez standing at the observation deck. Through the reinforced windows, we could see the subtle shimmer of temporal energy that now connected all human possibilities. You know what the really funny part is? She said, not turning from the view. We actually were a tiny fleet, but size never mattered. It was about having the courage to try something unprecedented when everyone else said it was impossible. She smiled, watching as a Zenith ship peacefully passed alongside a swarm vessel. Sometimes the smallest forces create the biggest changes. As news of our achievement spread throughout the galaxy, other species began approaching humanity not with condescension, but with curiosity. They wanted to understand how we'd managed to turn a potential catastrophe into a revolution in space-time physics. The answer was simple. We'd never accepted the limitations others placed on us. The temporal bridges we created became known as the confluence points, stable gateways between possibilities that allowed humanity to learn from every potential future. But more importantly, they stood as a testament to what could be achieved when necessity, innovation, and determination came together. 10 years later, I still serve aboard the Pioneer, though now she's been upgraded with technologies from multiple timelines. Sometimes during long shifts, I think back to that moment when our tiny fleet faced down not just a solar flare, but the varied boundaries of reality itself. We've been underestimated, mocked, and dismissed, And that had been exactly what we needed to prove everyone wrong. Because in the end, it was never about the size of the fleet. It was about the size of the dream, the depth of human ingenuity, and the unwavering belief that somewhere, somehow, there was always a solution waiting to be found. We just had to be brave enough to reach for it. And now, as humanity continues to explore both space and possibility, we carry with us the greatest lesson from that extraordinary day. Never underestimate the power of those who dare to defy expectations. After all, you never know when a tiny fleet might just change the universe.